Hey everyone, and welcome to Quick Review. Today I'm looking at Blazing Beaks. Why? Well, a lot of people have been asking me to look at Enter the Gungeon. I saw this game and it immediately reminded me of Enter the Gungeon from both a thematic and stylistic perspective, so it's a roguelike game that's more roguelike than most roguelike games, but also calls itself a roguelite game. It's similar to Enter the Gungeon in the sense that it's a pixel art action shoot 'em up style game. For me, it was also similarly addicting, but that's largely where the comparisons end. Unlike in most roguelike games, Blazing Beaks takes a semi-unique route where it punishes players for their greed. When I started playing the game, I actually thought something was broken. My character couldn't roll, I felt like I was moving slower than I was before, and I had no idea what was going on. Then I realized that I was an idiot and that the entire theme of the game is that picking up items impedes you temporarily. So every item you pick up adds a negative effect, like not letting you use your abilities or moving slower. Go figure. These negative effects continue to stack up until you can make it to a store area, at which point you trade these negative items for positive items to a clearly masochistic bird who wants to remove all of the joy from his own life and suffer as much as he possibly can. But who cares, he gives us cool items. Basically, the greedier you are, the more difficult the game becomes. But at the same time, the bigger the reward when, and if, you make it to the store. At this point, you can also trade out your weapon for other items you can purchase with coins that you collect. You can have one gun, so make sure it's the best gun. The rest of the game is pretty straightforward. Run through areas in a randomly generated map, kill enemies, try not to die. At the end of every area, you'll be faced with a boss. The difficulty of the boss is also randomly generated, so sometimes you'll wind up against a harder, healthier version of the boss, and other times you'll face a slightly weaker version. In my experience, this didn't change too much. The bosses were all relatively easy and straightforward once you figured out what was going on. In some cases, there also just isn't that much going on. Either ways, everything feels tight. It's not as crazy of a bullet hell type game as something like Enter the Gungeon, but it can still be challenging. And if you're feeling it's easy, you can run through multiple loops of the game until you eventually die. Additionally, there's a wide variety of characters. Many of the characters have pros and cons associated with them, and as far as I could tell, they were all relatively well balanced. From my perspective, only one character seemed strictly better than the rest, but every character felt playable and enjoyable in, their own special way. The developers have also added support for player-created characters, which you can currently add through the Steam Workshop. Played around with a few, and it was just generally a pretty cool idea. Beyond the core game mode, there are a few additional bits and pieces to the game as well. Daily challenges, and the day I record this, I had the top score, so feel free to download the game and knock me off my perch. The daily challenges basically have a pre-seeded map that everyone gets one shot at to see how far they can make it. It was actually pretty fun and gives you a reason to come back and play the game from time to time. There's also a tournament mode for local multiplayer. And finally, the story mode of the game can also be played through local multiplayer. I didn't test this facet of the game out, because honestly, I don't have a computer set up in a way that I can crowd 3 other friends around it with controllers to play a game. However, if you're playing on a bigger screen, have a more flexible setup, or are thinking about picking this game up on the Switch, it's probably a pretty fun and solid mode. It's also worth mentioning that you can manually set the seed for your playthrough, so if you're speedrunning against someone else, the devs have made it pretty easy for you to have a fair experience. Finally, there are also multiple difficulty modes, so if you feel the game is too hard or too easy, you can change that. And that's Blazing Beaks. After I got used to the movement and the different weapons, I actually genuinely loved this game. Here's the thing. It's not as complex or as replayable as something like Enter the Gungeon. However, this game just launched out of early access and it definitely has the potential to grow. And honestly, I've played the hell out of Enter the Gungeon. It's time I enjoy something else and take a break from that game, and Blazing Beaks does an amazing job of filling that void. And don't forget, this is just in my opinion. If you feel like I left something out, disagree, or just want to suggest something for me to review, leave a comment. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and don't forget I'm still running my giveaway, so if you want to win this game or any other game I've played over the last month, check out the description and feel free to subscribe to find out what other games I'll be reviewing. So check back weekly for more reviews and more free games.